Well, with our old meeting house getting cleaned out, I've been thinking a lot about that lately, and I've even had a few dreams about it and memories and what life was like as a congregation in that place. And I've discovered it's much like the life we have in this place, just warm and lots of good memories. But I remember, and I've been thinking specifically about when I first came here as the pastor. I was 37, 38 years old. And I had a big, bad case of the big head. I'd had several books published, still had hair, was married to a striking, intelligent woman, and was under the impression that I was God's gift to Quakerism. I rolled into here thinking how lucky you all were to have me as your pastor. So you can imagine my dismay when I attended my first monthly meeting for business. Certain my fellow friends would be waiting with bated breath to hear my thoughts on every matter, only to learn that you all felt perfectly free to do something entirely different from what I had suggested. This came as a shock. And I admit that at first I was mystified and thought perhaps I hadn't been heard. So went to the next monthly meeting and shared my ideas more passionately, more loudly, more vigorously. But friends still seemed resistant to my suggestions, which baffled me because I was positive that my ideas came straight from God through me to the meeting, who I thought would receive them with gladness and thanksgiving. Alas, that was not the case. The third monthly meeting was no better. And the fourth monthly meeting, I overheard someone sigh when I proposed an idea. I had excellent hearing back then, and it was definitely a sigh, a long, exasperated sigh, this expulsion of breath. I had spent my life hearing those sighs, so knew a sigh when I heard it. Discouraged, I went to Sarah Luca Bell, and I asked her why no one was listening to my suggestions. I was the pastor after all, and you paid me to be here, and you're paying for my expertise and wisdom. Why isn't anyone paying attention? And Sarah kindly reminded me that I think, though, to be honest, that she might have been the one who sighed. I think that might be the case. I'm not sure, but I think it came from where she was sitting. And she reminded me that in a Quaker meeting, power was not vested in positions, but in people. Not in positions, but in people. And that while it was true that I held the position of pastor, I hadn't been at Fairfield long enough to establish a track record of discernment. Sarah used the term weighty friend, by which she meant those friends believed to have a deep and rich interior life, whose insight into events is highly valued and therefore weightier, what we call weightier. It was a nice way of saying they didn't know me from Adam. And I wasn't going to be given power just because I was the pastor, which is consistent with our historic Quaker practice of investing people, not positions, with power. Incidentally, this is why I love it when someone comes here from another tradition, where they invest the pastor with lots of power, because there I have a window of opportunity before they learn that we don't put much stock in the position of pastor. But there for about a month or so, I can get people to do the wildest, craziest things, like convince them to bring me food and that I have the power here, but it never seems to last. We've been talking about things Quakers got just right. And this is one of them, that in Quakerism, we do not have a ruling class. We do not have a chain of command where authority is exercised by those in its ranks. Early friends noticed, as I am sure you have too, that just because someone has power does not mean they are wise. Now, if position does not make someone a weighty friend, what does? Longevity in a meeting? I've met Quakers who think that simply by showing up every Sunday for a long time, they should have more power than anybody else. But early friends would have said absolutely not. No more than being in a long marriage means your relationship is healthy and loving. Longevity can lead to growth and wisdom, but longevity can also lead to stagnation and lethargy, neither of which are conducive to a rich interior life. I have known friends of 1 year who are weightier than lifelong friends, and I'm sure you have too. Does belonging to a certain family make someone a weighty friend? Is there a Quaker aristocracy? A landed gentry within Quakerism, a family whose members carry more weight than others, whose genealogy confers power and privilege. We reject that notion too. To be sure, I have noticed a tendency among certain friends to think their family's long association with Quakerism grants them a certain weightiness or status, but I don't know a single thoughtful Quaker who believes that weightiness is genetic. It is only the people in that particular family who believe their surname carries weight and prestige. Does the ability to quote the Bible at length make someone a weighty friend? I have met friends who believe that to be the case, but I've not noticed the correlation. Far more often, I have noticed that an intense obsession with the Bible leads not to wisdom and weightiness, but almost invariably to arrogance and legalism. Quoting the Bible is no indication of someone's interior life. Now, in some churches, especially those where the prosperity gospel has captured the hearts and minds of so many Americans, wealth, it seems to some, is an indication of spiritual wisdom and blessing, but not so among friends. Not so among friends. There has never been a correlation between wealth and weightiness, except to observe that the obsessive pursuit of wealth usually hinders our spiritual well-being. The world may hang on every word from Elon Musk, but a Quaker meeting wouldn't. The weighty friends I've known did not set out to be that way. It wasn't their goal in life to be well regarded by their fellow friends. What they have done day in and day out is cultivate the habits of weightiness. They have taught themselves to listen, to think before speaking, a trait that has always eluded me. They have taught themselves to educate themselves about important matters, to resist impulsivity and embrace thoughtfulness. I've known Quakers who wanted to be thought weighty, so took on the appearance of wisdom, but they are usually a caricature of weightiness and seldom the real thing. I know a man who took up pipe smoking, making clever remarks in between puffs on his pipe, but that didn't make him weighty. Furthermore, if someone tells you they're a weighty friend, they aren't. Weightiness can't be claimed, only affirmed. In Quakerism, you can make great and grandiose claims about your gifts and abilities, but unless and until your fellow friends observe and affirm those gifts, your observations will carry no more weight than anyone else's, and usually less. I'll close by correcting a misconception often heard in Quaker meetings when we talk about how we do business and how we figure things out. We are not a democracy in which every voice carries equal weight. While everyone is free to speak, while everyone is valued, those friends, no matter how long they have been in this community, those friends with a reputation for weightiness are especially heeded. When they speak, people listen. We do not listen because they are rich. We do not listen because they are a pastor. We do not listen because they've been around here forever. We listen because they are thoughtful and they are loving, which to us are the clearest signs of God's guiding spirit. Thoughtful and loving. Where we see those traits, we know God is at work.